So for Unit 4, we're moving into language, and language is the foundation of culture. I find it really interesting. So we're going to begin with an important and kind of controversial question in anthropology, which is, does the way you speak affect the way you think? Now, what I mean by this is that some people have believed in anthropology that the language that you speak determines the way that you see the world, right? So because you have a certain set of vocabulary words, you use a certain way of thinking about time or actions, different verb tenses, different ways you put together ideas, gendered nouns, gendered language, that all of these combine to make you sort of see the world in a unique way that speakers of that language all share. Did anyone see the movie Arrival? If you didn't, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. And Arrival really is an anthropological movie. I'm sure they didn't think about this when they were creating it. The anthropologists would be like, oh, it is an anthropology movie. But it's certainly based around linguistics. And the story, if you haven't seen it, and you know, spoiler alerts, I don't think really hold here because it's been out for a while. So don't be mad at me, no letters to the editor. But it's about a time in the future in which an alien ship, this strange vertical half-egg looking thing in the photograph, arrives on Earth. Actually, a number of them sort of arrive on Earth, and a linguist is brought in order to try to understand the language of the aliens. So it turns out that Amy Adams' character is, this great linguist, and the government brings her in to try to understand the way that the aliens speak. So the aliens are these great big, like squiddy, hand-looking things, and the way that they speak is by ejecting some sort of ink into water, right? So they're sort of living in this watery environment in their ship. And the way that they are communicating is through sort of a circular image with little, like peaks and valleys on it. They call it a logogram. And it's basically an image that contains meaning. So she has to try to figure out what those logograms mean in order to figure out, are these aliens here to kill us, or, can we communicate with them so that they don't kill us, right? So that's what the government's worried about, is killing us, whether they're going to kill us or not. So the linguist goes through this sort of arc in the movie in which, as she's learning the language, she begins to have flashbacks of times in the past, but then also sort of see future times, and if I'm remembering correctly, maybe even alternate times. It's mostly future times, with the idea being that the more that she's learning to think like them, like the aliens, who think in terms of, in a very timeless way, the more that she is able to see her own life in a timeless way and look into the past and the future sort of equally. So anyway, this is really the idea of linguistic determinism, or if you look at the bottom of the slide here, what's also called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. So Edward Sapir and Benjamin Whorf worked together, and they were both linguists, linguistic anthropologists, who sort of formulated this hypothesis that the language that we speak influences the way that we think. So as you're reading your chapter and thinking about the language that you use during this module, see what you think about this. This is a very interesting question certainly our language and our culture, the way that we see the world, are all very, very linked, very integrated. And I think few would go as far as to say, if you understand the way aliens think, you're going to start thinking like them, right? That would be a very high degree of linguistic determinism. But there is definitely a relationship there. And it's a really interesting question to think about.